Hello friends, welcome to another episode of I Play Games and Film and welcome to another episode of Free Thought Fridays. This week has been an interesting one because I've been working a lot, and as some of you know I work in restaurants and I've been for a long time, and it's been this kind of interaction with people over the last week that has brought about this episode. Now, I guess I kind of felt this for a while anyway, but I think it's about time it's kind of come out of the woodwork, as it were, because I've worked in both chain and independent restaurants. At the moment I'm working in a chain, but I think what's important is for people to understand the differences between the two, because understandably people will expect the same quality from a chain restaurant that they would get from an independent, which is fair because a lot of chain restaurants nowadays, I've noticed, will try and imitate or replicate the quality of an independent restaurant. Which is fair because the idea of independent restaurants is that they're better, and that I'm just going to say that outright. They are just better. They're better restaurants, out and out, and there's no disagreement there. There shouldn't be anyway. And so it is only fair they see it that way. What I wanted to do though was do a quick list of the differences between them and why independent restaurants are better. Certainly of what they do in the kind of theme of dining out and eating and so on. So from the top, the first thing would be their ultimate goal. Now, in chain restaurants, obviously there's going to be a lot of them. The idea of a chain is the fact that there are many other restaurants that are identical and operate almost exactly the same way, with exactly the same menu, exactly the same food. That is their general purpose. That's their point, if you want. And so that's what they'll do. And then the independent restaurant, there will be one, maybe two, owned by one person and so on. But the idea is that they were brought about because the person who discovered them or the person who found them wanted to feed people well. They wanted to give people a true dining experience with good proper product and good food and, you know, a professional environment and a good kind of, generally a good dining out experience. That was the purpose of it. In a chain, and this is from working in them, the goal is to make money. That is it. Because obviously, in a chain, there's many of them, and they'll be owned by someone else. They'll be owned by another kind of overarching company that will be owned by one person or two people or three people. So the idea would literally be that they have all these chains so that they can push more profit into these few people. And that is the gist you can get out of it. An example of being basically, at the moment, I'm going through a situation wherein the restaurant's not doing so great. It's not. And it's clear that's happening. However, instead of kind of reviewing and looking at what we can do in terms of bettering the service, bettering the experience for everyone, maybe bettering the menu, it's just a case of, right, well in that case, just put less people on the floor, let's have less staff working so that we're not spending as much on labour, and just make sure we get bums on seats. Just get them sat, get them in, get them out. That way we can earn money. That's how we're going to be able to earn money now. Just forget the quality, forget any of that, just get them on the seats and get them fed. That's now the mentality they've got. So they haven't been able to take a step back and go, well, hang on a minute, we want them to know that we're quality, we want them to know that we're good at what we do, we want them to know that we take care of them. Instead it's a case of, oh, there's about 100 people at the door, let's sit them all now, let's see if we can just get them sat down, we'll give them free drinks just so they're not, really upset, but generally everything's going to be rushed, everything's going to be last minute, and everything's going to be about 60% as good as it could be. And that's kind of an experience of one of the differences between them, honestly. So yeah, the ultimate goals are there. I think also independence, they do want to give you quality because that's why they came about. They had a passion for food, for service, for dining out. They want to share that with people and they want to show people that. So their standards are at a level and they stay there. They never drop. They always stay there. A testament to that as well is, when I worked at one, I couldn't stay there. I didn't fit in is the safe way to put it. I was just too chatty, I was too loud, it was too much of a personality for the building. I didn't fit in, which is fine, absolutely fine. It's acceptable. So yeah, that's it. The ultimate goal is definitely different. The operation of them is also different. Now, as I mentioned, in chains, there's a pyramid upon who owns what. And it literally does go kind of in the form of, there'll be a restaurant, there's my restaurant, Then there's about 5 or 6 in an area. That's then run by an area manager. So there's a manager who oversees the operation of these 5 or 6 restaurants. Then there's someone above the area manager who then has to manage all the area managers there are. Obviously there's more than one area, so there's more than one area manager. So then there's someone else there who kind of manages them. Then above them there'll be someone who's in charge of the brand itself, who's in charge of actually what happens with the company and how to kind of produce sort of the I don't know, new menus or something like that. And then there'll be someone above them who will be in charge of all the brand managers of all the brands that are owned by the giant, overarching corporate company. So let's take not the company I work for, because that'll be dangerous ground. Let's say there's Miller & Carter. We've got Miller & Carter Steakhouse in the UK. That's owned by a company called Mitchell & Butler. Mitchell & Butler owns about 1,900 sites in the UK. Not the same company, not the same restaurant, but a whole load of sites. And they're a mismatch of bars, of, I think, clubs, of restaurants. And so there'll be people then at Mitchell & Butler who handle all of that as well. That's like the chain restaurant thing. So real big decisions get made at certain points. But ultimately, for you to reach kind of the top dog or the top of anything, you've got to go a long way and through a lot of people. And somewhere along the line, something gets lost. Because you have HR managers, obviously, you'll have food development departments who actually build the menus for you, so it's not even done in-house. You'll have the training managers, you have the brand managers, you have all sorts of people doing all sorts of different things. And I personally just feel that in that, something will get lost. Something somewhere will definitely get lost. Because there's just so many people trying to handle so many things, when ultimately, really, what you need is what an independent restaurant does. It's just someone who's on site, watching the operation of things, being able to discuss with someone else, maybe the chef or something, going, what's being ordered, what's popular, what's working, what's not working, right, we'll order that in accordingly, and that'll be what it is. That's changed, done, sorted. Instead, we've got hundreds of people all kind of getting different messages from different places, all trying to achieve different things, and it all just gets lost, and that's again where how the restaurant business can be easily confused. It does take a lot of organisation, and it does take a lot of patience, but in times like these, I think that's kind of all unnecessary. Certainly with chains that perhaps don't have a real good focus and a real good theme. So yeah, that's another big thing. Certainly, let's say if you had a bad experience in a restaurant, an independent restaurant, it'd be probably a lot easier to get hold of someone who can really do something about it. So the general manager, for example, may be on site, or the owner might even be there, who can literally just turn around and go, look, I'm really sorry about that, let's get everything sorted for you, and we'll really have a proper sit down and sort it out. In chain restaurants now, it seems to be a kind of a thing where the customer almost has to call Ron Daddy. He has to email head office and kind of basically badmouth everyone in the restaurant, so that then the person can then come back to the person, the employees in the restaurant, and go, why is this happening? What happened? Blah, blah, blah. They weren't there. They didn't see. But they're just assuming that everything was fine, but the restaurant just severely messed everything up. Which, again, it kind of leaves a broken chain of communication with everything. And it doesn't really solve the overarching issue of what might be going wrong. I mean, maybe the menu itself is rubbish. Maybe the portions of the food are actually really bad. Maybe the way that the restaurant is supposed to run according to the brand doesn't quite fit in with the way the restaurant is laid out, which is a perfectly feasible reason for things not to work out, because I've seen it myself, and I've been in restaurants where stuff can't operate according to the brand, but just purely because of the way that the restaurant's laid out and where the restaurant is. It just can't operate like that. So yeah, that's another thing. That's another thing there as well. A couple of more points. I mean, the quality of stuff. So the quality of food will be different. Now, it's probably quite brave for me to assume this, although it's not really. It's a strong assumption, because I've worked in a lot of chain restaurants and a couple of independents as well. But certainly, what is for certain, what is definite, is the fact that the quality of food you'll get out of an independent restaurant is guaranteed always to be higher than that of what you get from in a chain restaurant. The independent restaurant has a lot more flexibility over the products they can bring in. They're much more freedom to use the local butcher, the local market, to bring in the produce that they need to make their dishes. They can pick and choose where they get their stuff from, so there's more freedom in that. And generally they can gear what they put on their menus more towards what they believe the customer wants and what they want to do. Whereas in a chain restaurant, if it's not from the supplier, the registered supplier for that restaurant, it's not good enough. It's not right, and you can't use it. There'll be contracts in place saying you can't use anyone else but this. There'll be perhaps contracts in place talking about maybe food quality processes or something like that. Something that basically say, yeah, we just can't use anything else from anywhere else because that's not what our company needs. Which means that if you run out of that product or that item, that's it. You run out. You don't have any, and there you have disappointed guests who perhaps don't understand why it's not so hard to just run down the shop and pick one up and just get it in stock. Also, I mean, when you're looking at chain restaurants, you're looking at, like I said earlier, a large number of restaurants all doing the same thing, the same way, in the same layout. It's all the same. It's the same thing, but somewhere else, about 20 or 30 times. And so for that, they need to be able to get the same suppliers to put out the same kind of food and produce to each of these places at the same time. Now, where they get this from, I mean, it raises a big question mark to me, because the only company I know that supplies food to everyone in the UK is Breaks, and that's the name of the company that supplies its food. Which concerns me, because it supplied its food to places that say, this place is fresh, this place gets its food from here, this place gets its food from here. Breaks seem to be the company that, perhaps they're the middle ground, they're the delivery guys, basically, the glorified delivery guys for the food. But they seem to be the only people in the UK I've heard about that deliver any food anywhere. And so yeah, that raises a question for me. But again, that's the chain restaurant thing. That's kind of it. It's like, where do we get our veg from? Where do we get our meat from? It's all from the same place. It's always from the same place. And again, it doesn't say fresh food. It doesn't say fresh produce. It doesn't say picked that day or grown that year or anything like that. When it has to be constantly shipped out to every single site all the time. It's a huge feat, definitely. I mean, even to put on top of that, I'll be honest with you, the number of times that I see in chain restaurants, stuff being frozen, stuff being microwaved, and I'm not even mad about it, because again, when we talk about chain restaurants, we're looking at volumes, we're looking at getting people in, getting people out, maximising the number of people sat at seats, maximising the people in the building at one time, making sure it's busy all the time. Now, for that to be the case, on a large scale, I know it's not impossible to produce meals the way that, an independent probably could. But at the same time, chain restaurants, they just don't seem to be able to operate that way. Sometimes some things will have to be microwaved. Sometimes things just seem to have to be frozen so they can keep for longer. Because there's this whole thing with, stock management. Can we keep this long enough to sell it off? Or do we need to freeze it so that it can last a bit longer and we can sell it another day? Things like that. Because if we buy too much, we spend too much money on our budget, and if we don't sell enough, then we've got wastage, which has to go against our P&L and blah blah blah, and all this kind of stuff. Not exclusive to chain restaurants, but it just seems like it's so much harder to manage all that when you're looking at hundreds of other companies that are doing exactly the same thing, or sites, restaurant sites. They're doing pretty much exactly the same thing. Oh god. So yeah. With independents, sorry, I'm paused for a moment. With independents now, I do see there being just more flexibility again, with that. Because you're getting your fresh produce and things like that. Yeah, definitely. It's the same with the quality of staff, though. Now, with chain restaurants, because of the way that they use people, I do have this picture now with chain restaurants where, to them, people are cattle that can be moved around really easily with carrots on sticks, and that's the way it seems to be. It does seem to be a case of, we are bringing you in because you can do a job, not because you want to do a job, but because you do the job well, because you are because you can do the job. That's it. And there's a great saying that I saw. Where did I find it now? It's great. I mean, it's valid. It's totally valid, without a shadow of a doubt. but it's basically the only reason people get paid minimum wage is because it's illegal for them to be paid any less. And I just think that applies to restaurants so incredibly well. I just can't believe it. It's fantastic, really, because it's so true. But nonetheless, the quality of staff, absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, you're going to see the difference in the quality of staff. In chain restaurants, it's not that people wouldn't care so much, it's just the fact that there's not as much focus on the quality of service, I don't think. And there's not as much a focus on the quality of how things are done. The training is very short, it's very brief, it's very much like just get on the floor and, start running food, start getting orders in, start bringing sales in, do that. There will be training, but not as much. When I worked in the independent restaurants, it was like a month of solid training. It was, right, this is how we do this is how we do that. This is how this happens. You do it wrong, we're going to take you back and you're going to do it again. It was really, and it was very severe as well. There was no laughing, there was no joking around with it. It was very much like, this is how it's done. You do it any differently from this, we're not going to be happy with you, because this is how we do it. This is what good service is. There's no, you could have a little personality here, or maybe a little laugh there, add a little joke there. No, none of that. It was, this is how we do things. And it was good to have that kind of box package that was clear and concise and understandable and tangible as well. There was no grey areas. It was black or white, wrong or right, or that was it. And that's what you'll find again dining out in independent restaurants. They are clear about that. They're absolutely clear about that. I actually know for a fact that when I worked in an independent restaurant, I pretty much was going to get fired anyway. I have no doubt about that. But I left before it happened. And there were a number of reasons, like apparently I spent too much time at a table laughing. Not just laughing in general, just mild conversation and a joke would go by. I'd laugh, but then I laugh, quite a lot. So I would laugh too long at the table. I got my hair cut once and the owner sat me down and said that they don't reckon the guests would understand my haircut. It was kind of a fro hawk I got, a fro hawk with a line like kind of trimmed down one side, little snazzy. But no, the owner sat me down and was like, yeah, I don't think our guests would understand what you're doing there. Oh, okay. So yeah, it was far more, I guess you could say professional, if that's fair, if that's a fair word to use, but, that was it. But no, overall, I would say the differences that people need to understand between chains and independents is that basically chains are mock-ups. They are replicas of independence. They are never the pure thing. That's not to say, again, that it's a blanket, generalised thing across both sides, like all chains are rubbish and bad and all independents are amazing and laced with gold. But honestly, that is kind of the generalised theme of it, of everything I've said, is the fact that chains aren't as good, and I don't think ever will be as good as independent restaurants. And I think if people want real, true quality from their dining out experience, don't go to a chain restaurant, because you cannot guarantee that you're always going to have a good time. You really can't. You cannot guarantee that. I can't stress that enough. I just cannot stress that enough. By all means, you can certainly be mad that things don't go well in chain restaurants, but I think to me now, I'm kind of less surprised if I go to a chain restaurant and don't have a good time, because I'm like, well, I don't expect good things from this place. I immediately don't expect things to be amazing because of what it is. If it is good, then fantastic. My expectations have been met, going beyond their expectations. I'm trying to think of the word here, but it's gone beyond. It's basically gone beyond because I immediately don't expect a lot from them. And again, not because they're going to be shit, but just there's so many things, there's so many variables that can make it a bad time. So yeah, that's basically it. So I hope all of this has made sense to you guys. I hope all of this has kind of perhaps opened your eyes a little bit. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I hope it's kind of made it clear about the differences between the two, because it's incredible how different they really are. It is, honestly. But guys, thank you very much for watching. Subscribe, comment, click the thumb button, share with a friend if you like, and I'll see you in another episode if I play games and film it. Have a lovely weekend, and have a lovely rest of your Friday, and I will see you another time. You take care, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.
shine. You don't